Critadel is a futuristic 2D action platformer created by Pixelian Studio and published by Nicalis. The story is about three protagonists who try to get to the top of the Tower of Babel, but the way up is filled with enemies who belong to the Order of Noah. The game does not put much focus on the story, rather it is other things that constitute the main purpose of the game, such as the gameplay itself. Sure, you come across different characters and bosses along the way, but they contribute minimally to the game's story. This is a difficult game. You run the risk of being harmed by enemies, and it is important to be patient. Learn how the enemies move, the type of projectiles they fire, or if they do damage in close combat. The difficulty lies in the fact that you can meet several enemies at the same time with completely different characteristics. It can get messy, and you have to escape. Find a safe place at a distance and methodically eliminate each enemy one by one. This is one of the first times I played the game, and there were a lot of things happening at the same time. Here I am being chased by an electric ball, while guided missiles and other projectiles try to harm me. The big problem in my opinion is that the game gets complicated way too fast. You barely have time to get used to the control or understand your skills before meeting hordes of enemies. The same goes for the bosses. Usually, your standard weapon is far too weak, because the bosses have a large health pool. This means that you have to survive a long time to be able to move on in the game. If you're lucky, you will find a strong weapon that does a lot of damage, but if you only have your basic gun available, be prepared for a long and drawn out battle. This is one of the first bosses in the game. He fires lots of fireballs, missiles, projectiles that bounce against the wall, and a charge attack. I mean seriously, for being this early in the game there sure are a lot of things going on at the same time. It may be important to know all the attacks you have been subjected to and how to take protection. Otherwise you risk getting into trouble quite quickly. I have nothing against challenging games, but when the level of difficulty is maximized right from the start, it takes away some of the fun of the game. The graphics are perfectly okay and draw inspiration from Game Boy Advance. The different environments are detailed and create an excellent sci-fi feeling. On a few occasions I experienced that the game slowed down and lost a bit in frame rate, but in general it flows well. One of the game's strengths is that there are so many items and weapons. The three characters you can choose to play have their standard weapon, but during the game you will find new weapons that have different functions, strengths and weaknesses. Since the game's developers have chosen to implement a system where found weapons break, the standard weapon usually becomes the one you use the most. Of course it's fun to find new weapons and test how they work, but like games like Zelda Breath of the Wild, I do not like that the duration of the weapons decreases after using them for a while. Especially when you have found a weapon you like, but no, I cannot use it because I have to be careful with its limited duration. Only use when it is most necessary, such as on difficult bosses or dangerous enemies. It is possible to configure the control, but there are a limited number of options. For example, I prefer to use L to aim and Y to shoot. Apparently, it is not possible. Instead, I have to use the right stick to aim, which feels awkward. There are only a couple of predefined options for how to set up the control. I do not like this. I would have liked more freedom of choice to be able to configure the control myself. If you played games like Axiom Verge or the latest Metroid, you may know that you can aim with L and shoot with Y. I wish that possibility existed in this game, but since you have to get used to the new control schemes, all enemies become extra challenging to kill. If you could only adjust the control to your liking, this game would have been a lot more fun to play. However, there is the possibility to being able to lock onto your target. It makes it somewhat easier to shoot while moving, but I think it is a small consolation. Look at these enemies, they look completely harmless and shoot out some projectiles, but nothing more than that. Nevertheless, they pose a risk because the control feels so awkward. Critadel is a perfectly okay indie game, despite the fact that it feels unbalanced in terms of difficulty and the control is awkward. It is satisfying when you manage to eliminate a boss and move on to the next level. The large variety of weapons and items also makes the game rewarding and fun, but the game requires patience and that you're prepared to die over and over again. Please subscribe to my channel for future content and more reviews. Have a good day, bye.